Not only, we live the life, right? We talk the
Yeah.
talk, we walk the walk. We teach project management in a certain way, and then we do it in the exact same way. That's what kind of blows away a lot of my students. They're like, "You're actually doing the things you teach." Yeah, yeah. We have stand-ups, right? We have retrospectives. We do all those things. And we have a continuous improvement process. So I think that's what you need to find out when you're looking. Like, it does this seem like a competent organization? Do they go beyond the basics? Do they go beyond the slide notes, so to speak? And are they really giving me both, like you said, you brought it up, the explicit knowledge that they have and the tacit knowledge?
Welcome to the Vets to PM Military Transition Academy podcast, where we feature veterans and professionals who've built successful careers in business and corporate America to help you do the same. In this episode, Misty is joined by Aaron McEvers, a U.S. Army veteran. Before you can trust any organization to guide your military transition, you must first trust yourself. In this episode, we break down the 3 components of trust and show how they directly impact your post-service career. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Military Transition Academy podcast by Vets to PM. Today I'm joined here by my colleague Aaron, and we are going to talk about a topic that you don't really hear much about, but people have a lot of questions about, and that's trust. So when you're getting ready to leave the military, it feels like everyone has something to say. Do this, sign up for that, start here. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to this. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust that your experience matters. You have to trust that you're not starting from, scratch, from zero. And you have to trust that there are real resources out there, ones built to help you, just like Vets to PM does every single day. So today we're just going to talk about what trust looks like and how do you actually believe in your own competencies, right? How can you increase your confidence so you can trust that your military transition is going to be smooth and successful? And then we're also just going to discuss how you can trust the organizations out there that truly have your best interests in mind. Welcome to the show, Aaron. I'd love for you to introduce yourself again to our audience.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron, and I am a colleague of Misty's. And I enjoyed the last podcast that we did so much. I wanted to come back and do it again. So I'm really excited, very passionate about what we do when it comes to helping veterans and helping those individuals in our community. And today I really just wanted to talk about trust and all that entails.
Yeah, and so you and I, we both retired from the military, senior NCOs. And so being retired is a little different than just being separated. And so when it comes to trusting ourselves, we have a long career and we have lots of accolades. And we also have a security blanket too when it comes to, benefits and pension, whatever it may be. But you don't have to be a senior NCO to trust yourself. And so regardless when you're separating or retiring from the military, we should probably start with, when you think of trust, like what are 3 words that come to mind when we talk about this topic?
So I am very partial to the Francis Frey and Morris model. I came across an article in a Harvard Business Review because I was doing a lot of, as an equal opportunity advisor, we were talking about building high trust cultures in the organizations that we were leading. And I felt like there wasn't enough understood about it, or there wasn't. We understand what trust is, but what makes trust, right? And 3 primary drivers that they found, and that was competence. Okay, for me to trust you, I have to feel like you know what you're talking about. Whatever profession, whatever industry that you're in, if you want me to trust you, you don't have to have all the answers, but you better have a high percentage of it, right? And I better trust that your logic and your judgment is sound. And then the other one was authenticity. I have to feel like the you that I experience is the you that exists day in, day out, right?
Yeah.
That I'm working with the person you are, both at home, at work, on vacation, whatever. You're not putting up facades and pretending to be somebody that you're not. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, I have to you have to signal, if you want me to trust you, I have to get a sense that you're an empathetic individual, that you actually care about my well-being, my future. You want to develop me into something that is better than what I currently am, and that you're actually going to take care of me, and you don't view me strictly as a resource or as a number or as a means to justify any kind of end or anything like that. And that if you can signal those, or if you detect those in the individuals that you're trying to uh, surround yourself with, and be part of your day-to-day life, if you detect those three things in a high amount, you're probably more than likely going to have a very strong sense of trust with that individual.
Yeah, and so when you think about it, when you peel the onion back, just think about someone that you trust right now. Most likely they're competent, they're authentic, and they have
Mhm.
empathy towards others, towards themselves, towards you, right? And so
Yep.
that's where trust starts. So let's first, before we can trust any organization to help us with our military transition, we have to trust ourselves. So let's break it down for the audience. When we think about competence, when it comes to trusting ourselves, what are some things that people should believe about their knowledge, skills, and abilities that they've honed over, this career? How is that going to help them with their military transition?
So yeah, if we're addressing competence, and logic, I would say, and this is something that happened to me very early on in my career, I kind of got my promotion rate was a little bit ahead of my competence rate, meaning I got put in positions sooner than what I was really ready for. And what I found was what gave me a sense of comfort was knowledge about the material that I needed to be concerned with. So I would say, if you want to begin building that trust in yourself, you have to have maybe not even a strategy, but you better have a plan to increase your own knowledge, skills, and abilities, because that, as you navigate that transition process, the amount of knowledge you have about the process and what's likely going to lend themselves to more positive outcomes, that's probably going to dictate your stress level, right? If you haven't
Yeah.
really done the research, if you haven't looked into the programs that are out there for you, if you haven't connected with mentors or peers that have gone before you and be like, hey, teach me. The question I always asked was, what do I need to know that you wish you'd known when you'd gone through it, right? What was the one thing? What's the one piece of knowledge you wish you'd started out with, but you learned towards the back end? You're like, man, I wasn't as spun up on this as I wished I would have been. And that's what I did to build competence even throughout my career, because I didn't have to be the smartest person in the room, but I didn't want people thinking I was the least smart person in the room. So I studied, and I got into my manuals, and read up on everything I needed to be concerned with. And that translated into my transition as well.
Yeah.
I found Vets to PM because I was doing the research. I'm like, what's out there? What are the good organizations out there that can help me unlock those post military career doors that are really going to have me in the life that I'm looking to lead?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to competence, it's important. I mean, I've been out for 5 years, and so I do think that what I talk about is still relevant because we're not discussing specific things. But when it comes to competence for your military transition, there's a couple things that we need to rely on. We all have explicit knowledge and we all have tacit knowledge, right? And so explicit knowledge are those things that can be codified. Those are those facts, those figures, the education, the training, whatever it may be. And then the tacit knowledge, that's the experience, right? So when you are embarking on a military transition, let's first rely on what is our experience with separating or retiring from the military. We probably don't have, personal examples, right? But we have people in our network that can help us out. And then we need to go to the information. And so every service is going to have some sort of checklist. By law, they have to provide a separation or retirement checklist, and you have information that your service is going to give you. And now is about the time in the podcast, Aaron, where people will be like, well, TAP sucks and TAP this and TAP that. Well, TAP is in general, like it's for the general public, and it's going to provide you the high level, right, checklist of what to do when you separate or retire. And so that is part of your competence when it comes to the military transition. So start with what the service is going to give you, and then, progress there with what you know from your network. And then that's when you can lean on other people as well. But we also have to be careful of, tapping into so many different, resources that we get lost in the noise, right? And that's where people will now feel like they're not competent, right? They don't know enough to transition.
Yeah, you make a really good point. I felt that early in my transition, working with, as I went into my CSP, like I just got bombarded. Hey, these are all these things out there, USO Pathfinder, the Texas Veterans Commission, and I just down the list, and I'm like, man, that is a lot.
Oh,
That is a
yeah.
lot of resources that are out there,
And every
and it
resource is a pretty good resource.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
100%. But I was a bit overwhelmed, and it did cause me to like. I was a little shaken in my confidence. I'm like, I don't know as much as I thought I did about the transition, right? So there's that, and yes, one of our former students, he said, I feel like the TAP process is kind of like a treasure map. They give you a treasure map, and it's kind of on you. And he was, I kind of agreed with that analogy, but it is a more of a one size fits all. Like, hey, this is a general program that isn't tailored to individual needs. It's tailored to general needs, and it's organizations out there such as ours that absolutely were willing to get into what is this individual need, and then we help them, meet those needs to get them where they ultimately want to be.
Yeah, and I will tell you, TAP has progressed,
Oh
and
yeah.
I truly believe. I mean, we're in the thick of it, so we kind of have behind the scenes, and we know what's going on. But now, like, there is a virtual TAP that anyone and everyone
Mhm.
can tap into, and there's lots and lots of resources and videos and whatever. And then there's the in-person TAP, and you can go several times, kind of depending on your rank and your timeline. And then they have like other options too, like the business one, the entrepreneur track, the education track, the teacher track. And so all of the information is out there, but it starts with one, the checklist, knowing what's available, and then really taking action. The one time to not be complacent and not to procrastinate is when you're transitioning from the military. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. That sand in the hourglass runs down pretty quick,
Oh, yeah.
especially once you hit about that 18 to 12 month mark. Because it was for me, it was like a moment of panic. Like, oh, I got about 9 months left. Like, and I don't have my last 9 months mapped out yet, and that's what led me to interact with Vets to PM and become a member of the CSP that I now teach. But yeah, that
Yeah.
you think that you have a lot of time, and you don't. Once it starts winding down, it feels like it goes progressively faster.
Yeah. And I talk to veterans all the time. And, you know, every now and then I get a veteran that says, well, I was never told that. I didn't know that. And
Hmm.
that may be true. But in the world of Google and in the world of ChatGPT and in the world of the internet, in no way, shape, or form should you be defined by I didn't know that or I was never told that. That may be very true. So what, now what? Right. And
Yeah.
so if you don't think that your service checklist is effective enough, how can you make it effective? Go to all the additional resources that they provide you, which is probably sitting in an email that you didn't check,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Or go to the
100%.
website that was on your checklist that you didn't go to the back page for. So when it comes to competence with your military transition, it has to start with us because, Aaron, I say this all the time, but if you're going to put on your resume that you are resourceful, that you are flexible, that you are agile, and you are adaptable, now is the time to be resourceful, right?
Yes. Yes.
Agile, flexible, adaptable. And so it starts
100%.
with what can you learn about the military transition? What do I need to do? So that's
Hmm.
competence. Now
Yep.
let's move on to ourselves, right? So you said like authenticity is part of trust. And so we
Hmm.
have to be authentic. And so when it comes to our military transition, being authentic is really kind of knowing what is it that you want to do or be. And I am famous for saying, let's not think 5, 10 years, let's think 1 year at a time. And so what would you say about, getting to know your authentic self?
So yeah, when it comes to authenticity, it's very important. The people have to feel like you're, because from there they get a sense of your integrity,
Yeah.
and whether or not you're an honest broker and that you're going to do right by them. And the example I like to bring up is back when I was a drill sergeant. I was the assertive, loud, hands flying all over the place type drill sergeant,
Knife
and I got
hand.
a yeah, and I got a new partner, and we were working together for the first time, and I was going to town. I was giving him the business, and he, out of character, tried to kind of match my energy and be a part of that, and it just felt so forced and so insincere. And I
What a
my
good
immediate thought
example.
is, yeah, my immediate thought is like he's damaging his credibility with the soldiers.
Yeah.
Like they can tell that this is performative. And I actually had to talk to him. I'm like, hey brother, I was like, I appreciate everything you do. I was like, but you don't have to do it the way I do it. I see you more as that quiet mentor, that person that's going to close the distance with somebody, but it's going to talk to them in a very calm manner. And you're going to deliver the same message I deliver, but you're going to do it in a way that suits your actual personality and who you are as a person. So I was like, be that more quiet mentor, follow up
Yeah.
after I come through as a hurricane and just destroy everything. Follow up with them, and be that calm, reassuring individual. And he kind of took my advice, and we progressed further because I think it's just so important. When it comes to being our authentic self, one, we have to have our own high emotional intelligence, right? We have to have developed that. And
Self-awareness.
that starts with that self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
And then once I'm aware of how things impact me and how I feel about things, then I can start to regulate it, and then I can start to be that more authentic person. But you absolutely have to, because you've got to know what your future self wants,
Yeah.
right? Your current self is sometimes needs to be motivated, needs to be pushed. I know I did. And I know when I was just kind of thinking to myself every day, hey, retirement's coming. I'm so excited. And then finally one day it was present self realizing I got 9 months left and I really haven't set myself up for transition success. And I'm like, I got to do the things that future me is going to thank me for. And it goes back to what I know I discussed it previously. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew who I wanted to be. And
Yeah.
that was somebody that had that work life balance, felt made a little bit more money. What money wasn't that important to me. Everybody wants to make a little bit more, but I know in the long term, money isn't going to motivate you. Money's not going to keep you happy. If you make more money, that eventually becomes your new baseline, and then you start thinking, well, I need more money.
Yeah.
So I
Lifestyle
kind of,
creep. Lifestyle creep is
yes,
real.
life's
Yep.
100%, 100%. Because once you start realizing all the places you can spend that additional money,
Oh,
then
yeah.
you realize you need more money on top of that to buy those other things. But yeah, money mildly important. But what was important was the work life balance. I gave it all for 21 years. I didn't want to continue to do that for the remainder of my working career. And then I still wanted to serve, right? I still wanted to
Yeah.
be a leader. I still wanted to be somebody that helped other people. And now it's currently navigating the transition that I just completed. So once I found out that was my authentic self, that was who I wanted to be, everything else kind of really locked in.
Yeah. And it's important that you think about, when you separate or retire from the military, you have no idea what you want to do or what kind of life you want to live. You think you do, and that's good enough for now, right? You think you do, and that's what's going to drive your actions towards your transition. So I always tell people, I take people through an exercise, and I tell people, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think about, when you think about separating or retiring, what are some things that come to your mind, right? And people will tell me, like, I want to drop my kids off. I want to pick them up. I want to go to their games. I want to do this. I want to travel. I want to have a late start or whatever it may be, right? So if those are the things that you envision, that you're telling, like, that's what you authentically want. If you're envisioning that, that's what you want. Now, we all know we live in a world where we have to make money in order to live, right? So what you want is not always what you can have, right? And so you're not probably going to have the, that you can create it, or create aspects of it, but it's important to understand that that's actually what you want. And so, what you and I see every day is that we see these LinkedIn warriors and we see people chasing what other people are achieving. But is that actually what you want? And I have a really good friend that is achieving so much. I mean, she's, a super influencer. We talk about the same content, and she always tells me, she's like, you could be just as famous as me. You could get all these brand deals, you could be making this money. And I'm like, cool, but that's not what I want. Just so you know, I know that I have that message. I know that I can do all that. I don't covet
Yeah.
that. That's not what I want, because that's not my authentic self. That's what you want. That's cool. And so it's important to understand what is it that you want from your military transition. But another place to start too, and I think this is something that you did, was you have to start with the people that you're transitioning with. What do they want as well, right? Because they are going to drive, essentially your decisions for the most part. So like our son was like, I do not want to move anymore. Keep me here. And so that took a lot of opportunities off the table. So, okay, we're staying in South Carolina until you finish high school. Cool. So your authenticity has to also, be driven by those people that are going to transition with you as well. We do have a great tool at Vets to PM. We have a career transition workbook that has you outline all the jobs that you did, that you liked, that you disliked, and what it is that you want from your post-service career or post-service life. And the one question I ask you this, I ask everyone this: what kind of lifestyle do you want when you separate or retire from the military? That lifestyle should drive your job search.
Yeah, absolutely. I My peer group that I'm kind of keeping in touch with, the people I train, there are several that are on their third or fourth job in the time frame because they were chasing jobs, and then they would get into the jobs and they were unhappy, they were unmotivated, they were they were bored, they were underutilized, maybe they were overutilized in their role. They weren't appropriately stressed, as they weren't able to get into that flow state at work, um, so
Appropriately
they were
stressed.
unhappy.
What a way to
Yeah,
put that.
yeah, no, and I think the happiest I was ever in the military was when I was appropriately challenged, right? Not, I definitely been drowned in work and taskings, and there have been days where I really didn't have anything to do, and I'm like, why am I here? Those were not great days. My greatest days in the military was when I was performing a little bit beyond my capacity because the time just flies and you feel a sense of accomplishment. But yeah, going
Yeah.
back to it, I would be less focused on chasing job titles, and more on chasing
Oof.
again that lifestyle, like I said, that you want. Like, is this going to facilitate what you want in your life outside of work? And if the answer is no, then maybe it's not a good fit. If the answer is yes, then yeah, give it a shot. Give it a shot, 100%.
Yeah, and six-figure salaries require six-figure work. And I will say that
Mhm.
every single podcast because it's 100% true. And if the first thing that comes out of your mouth when someone asks you what kind of lifestyle do you want for your post-service career, if the first thing you say is work-life balance, but then you tell me you want to make 150K or
150,
whatever,
yeah.
there's a disconnect there because that doesn't
Mhm.
align. That doesn't align at
Yeah.
all. It's a privilege to have pressure. It's a privilege to be busy. It's a privilege to have lots and lots of things on our plate. Most of the time, in reputable businesses, you will be compensated. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like at Continental Tire, I was beyond my capacity every single day. Like I could not keep up. I was 100% compensated though to be beyond capacity. And so it was expected to just keep moving and keep doing whatever it was that I could. And at the end of the day, when I felt wiped out or I felt disconnected from my family, my husband and I would say, at least we're getting compensated for this. At least I'm being respected. At least I'm being, developed. At least I'm being considered. My name is being mentioned. And so
Mhm.
that does have to align, right? But you have to be
Yeah.
honest with yourself. You have to be authentic enough to know what is it that you truly want. 5 years after, so I'm September 1st will be 5 years. I
Mhm.
realize I do not want to work in a big company ever again. That's just not me. I am not a fly by the seat of my pants, battle 50,000 priorities. Nope, I want to do something, get it done, see the fruit of my labor. Do something,
Yeah.
get it done, see the fruit of my labor. But
Yeah.
now I know that, right? So confidence, authenticity, and now when it comes to trusting ourselves, let's talk about empathy. And I know this is the one topic that you love to talk about, especially because it's really the glue that holds emotional
Yeah.
intelligence together, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I really started getting spun up on how to be an empathetic leader there towards the end of my military career because I was encountering so many leaders that were the opposite, right? And I was dealing with issues with soldiers as an equal opportunity advisor. And a lot of times the problems I saw was their leadership was really struggling conveying that message that you matter, right? You as a person are important. Uh, and I talked to a lot of people about it, and I think the ability to communicate empathy and signal empathy is sometimes the wires get crossed, right? And I think sometimes if you feel like you're a leader and you're communicating empathy to somebody that's in a situation that's, say, it's not that big of a deal, right? It's really not that deep, but that person that you're working with is heavily impacted by it. The
Yeah.
disconnect I saw was that they felt like if they communicate any sense of empathy, then that means they're validating or agreeing with whatever it is they're going through. Like, just an example that I legitimately had was a soldier wanted to go home because a family pet died, right? And
Yeah.
he'd had the dog for 18 months, but we're not in the business of doing that. And the NCO, the individual leading them, was just basically like, too dang bad, get back to work, right? When they could have easily said something like, I see or I understand why this would upset you. However, comma, business rules, the Army's not in the habit of granting emergency leave for pet bereavement. They could have handled so many situations better, and it would have increased trust in leadership. So that's where I really got to it. You can communicate empathy without signaling, hey, I agree with you, that does suck, or what you're going through, is awful. Even if it's not, just be like, hey, this is what I coach people. I'm like, when somebody tells you a problem and you think it's not that deep, right? Just get over it. That's a lot of times that's what we kind of want to say. Get over it, get back to work. Take the time, take a breath, and say, I understand why you might be upset by this. And then you kind of
Yeah.
follow it up with, however, we got to get this done, right? It costs nothing and it gets you everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, I understand why you feel this way. It doesn't mean I agree that it's a big deal, but I'm at least connecting with you on a personal level and I'm communicating I do value you as a person. And I think that's where a lot of people really struggle. I think they confuse empathy and sympathy, right? Hey, I'm not feeling what you feel, but I understand why you feel this way. And that is so huge for communicating trust. If I don't feel like a person values me as an actual person and not an employee or an asset or a resource, I'm going to have a hard time committing to what you want me to do. I will absolutely be compliant, right? I'll get the minimum done.
Ooh, what a good
And
word. Yep.
yeah. And if you're watching me, I'm going to be banging out emails and reports and slide decks and all that at a furious pace if you're watching me, right? Because I'm complying. I want to signal compliant. But if I don't think you value me as a person, yeah, I'm just going to comply with what you want done. But if I feel like all those other factors we talked about, competence, authenticity, and empathy are there and present and they're in abundance, man, I'm committed to you. I am going to do everything you need me to do because this is now a reciprocal relationship, right? It's not a strictly transactional, I give you this in exchange for this. I feel like it's a relationship where we're both bettering each other. And I'm going to feel much more psychologically safe being honest with you,
Yeah.
telling you what it is. Basically, I ask people, do you have trust in psychological safety in your organization? If so, who takes bad news to the boss? They'll line up at the door to tell the boss good news, right? But who's the one that has the courage to be like, hey, I'll tell him, I'll tell him or her, hey, this happened. I got in my career, I was frequently designated to be the bearer of bad news. I don't know if they just
So was
wanted me to
I.
take, yeah. I don't know if they wanted us to take the punishment or if they felt like we were skilled and had the level attack. But yeah, circling back, empathy's everything. It costs so little, to signal empathy to the individuals that you're working with and that you surround yourself in your daily life. It costs so little, and it provides so much value for the
Yeah.
relationship.
And before you can be empathetic towards others, you have to first be empathetic towards yourself. So, especially during the military transition, have empathy towards yourself. Like, yes, you are a 20-year professional if you're retiring, 20 plus year professional if you're retiring. Yes, you are worth six figures. Yes, you have knowledge, skills, and abilities. But we also have to remember, like, we're really good professionals, effective and efficient in the military. Can that translate in the civilian sector? Absolutely. Do we know that though? We don't know that. So we have to be a bit empathy. Like we don't know yet, right? Everyone's telling us that it will, but we don't have that, that tacit knowledge of are we actually effective and efficient in the civilian sector where compliance is not a thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we have to have empathy towards ourselves. Like I used to tell people all the time, whatever you're feeling right now, like if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling stupid, you're feeling incompetent, you're not, you don't feel like you can be anything good outside of the military, like that's all normal. But you first have to identify, like, that's a normal feeling. And you have to be empathetic towards yourself. Not every day is going to be a good day, but there's always going to be good in a day, right? Super cliche, but it's true. And so, if you want to be empathetic towards others, which you should be, just like what you said, because the reward is super beneficial, you have to start being empathetic with yourself, right? And so, when it comes to the military transition, it starts with your competence, understanding, what do you authentically want and desire, and then being able to show empathy to yourself and then to others. And that's how we build trust, right? So then that is how we can expect competency, we can expect authenticity, and we can expect empathy from those that we are trusting with our military transition.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I like having empathy for yourself. That is, acknowledge your feelings, right? And your feelings are your feelings. Like you're entitled to them. You own them.
Feelings are
You do.
valid, they're not always
Yeah.
right, but feelings are
Right.
valid, right?
Right. And the first step, that and this is, cognitive psych, uh, Albert Ellis, the activating event, and then
Yep.
your beliefs and their behaviors, and then your consequences. What are the outcomes? So yeah, take the time, acknowledge your feelings, acknowledge they're valid, try to understand why you're having them. Uh, Try not to let them influence too many of your behaviors if it's negative, right? Or if it may lead to negative or disastrous outcomes, obviously. But yeah, I love that. Have empathy for yourself.
Yeah. So, when it comes to the military transition, it just starts with, understanding that you are competent, right? And you're competent because you are being provided the resources that you need to truly transition. You are. So you're being provided those resources not only from your service, but from the people around you. And then there's lots of other resources out there. Discover what it is that you want, utilize the Vets to PM career transition workbook, and then, cut yourself some slack, extend yourself some grace and be empathetic towards yourself. And everyone has so many big feelings towards other people. It's time to have big feelings towards yourself as well. And so that's where the trust starts when it comes to the military transition. First, it starts within ourselves, right? But Aaron, we have lots and lots of resources out there, and it's hard to figure out which resources, are the best ones for us. And so now it's time to start bragging about why people should trust Vets to
Yeah,
PM. And obviously, we're a little biased because we work for
100%.
Vets to PM.
100%.
But it's also we're a little biased because I'm a Vets to PM success
Mhm.
story, and you are as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say the things that we discussed at the personal interpersonal level, carry that forward when you're evaluating who you want to work with in your transition or in your career path, your upskilling, your credentialing. Absolutely look at those things. Do you get a sense that the individuals that you're dealing with are
Yeah.
competent and actually know what they're talking about? Uh, I I like teaching what I teach, and I love when my students ask me very tough, situational, off the wall questions, right? And I say that because I've met a lot of instructors in the military who, on the outset, seem competent, but what it is they're familiar with the PowerPoint. They're familiar with the slide notes, right? They're
The
they're
notes in the PowerPoint.
yeah, their domain of expertise begins and ends there. And so when you ask them questions about things that aren't covered in that lesson plan, it's like, I don't know, let me get back to you. Da, 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 da. But I love it when my students ask me questions, situational, off the wall, the extremes of the extreme examples, because that gives me an opportunity to conceptualize and draw on all the project management, and agile leadership knowledge that I have and communicate it to them, right? So you want to look for somebody that can tell you more about, well, our program offers da 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 da. Look, I'm going to give you a sample because I'm going to talk to you about what we teach. And I think what's also awesome about us is we not only, we live the life, right? We talk the
Yeah.
talk, we walk the walk. We teach project management in a certain way, and then we do it in the exact same way. That's what kind of blows away a lot of my students. They're like, you're actually doing the things you teach. Yeah. Yeah, we have stand-ups, right? We have retrospectives. We do all those things. And we have a continuous improvement process. So I think that's what you need to find out when you're looking. Like, it does this seem like a competent organization? Do they go beyond the basics? Do they go beyond the slide notes, so to speak? And are they really giving me both, like you said, you brought it up, the explicit knowledge that they have and the tacit knowledge? Are they sharing the tacit knowledge with me? And that's everything, right? Because that's the on the job experience. I'm going to
Yeah.
teach you what I've learned through experience, and sometimes that's more valuable than anything else. So
Yeah.
there's that, and then
Yeah, and Vets
everything
to
else.
PM, we're a lot of things. And so 10 years strong, 18,000 veterans served, right? And so first and foremost, we truly specialize in helping you identify that transferable skill set, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most military members are walking out with a project management, a cyber IT, an HR, or a general management skill set. We have
Mm-hmm.
lots and lots of soft skills. We are developed professionally more than really anyone in the civilian sector. We're developed at lots of different intervals throughout our career, and so we're going to help you identify that transferable skill set, because that's where most people's military transition fails, because they don't know how to translate what they've done into terminology that recruiters, hiring managers, and employees are going to understand. So the first thing that we do is we help you identify that transferable skill set. And then the second thing that we do is we help you validate that skill set with a professional certification, such as the PMP, the Project Management Professional, the ACP, which is the Agile Certified Professional, CompTIA, Set Plus, A Plus, and Net Plus, and then HR and plenty of others, right? So you get that professional certification that recruiters and hiring managers and employees understand. Oh, so she understands civilian HR. Okay, she knows civilian HR. Oh, she had to showcase 36 months of project management experience. Okay, so she's a project manager, right? And then what we do is we do the plus, right? So our programs are exam prep boot camp plus programs. And the plus is that we help you show and tell those transferable skill sets. We're training you on how to write a resume. We're training you on how to interview. We're training you on how to showcase your knowledge, skills, and abilities via stories on LinkedIn, right? We're not just doing a resume for you. And then we're going to connect you to companies that want to hire you, because it's not about the three letters at the end of your name. It's about what those three letters can do for your income.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I agree 100%. Um, and then I think if we move into authenticity, for me, I definitely feel like this kind of draws on what I was just talking about, in that not only am I teaching it, or preaching it, but I'm also living it. I'm doing it. We're actually doing this in
Yep.
our daily lives as well. The things we teach, we don't. I don't necessarily leave them at the door. When I'm done for the day, they're with me and they're a part of they're a part of who I am. And I think that that really bleeds through. And I think my students understand that, like, I'm giving them all I got, right? They're getting the real me.
Yeah, and you'll see that in every employee at Vets to PM. So, every employee is either a veteran or has veteran connections, right? But our company was founded by Doc Wright, Eric Wright. He was a Navy veteran. He, transitioned and he had a terrible transition. He explains it that way. And it wasn't until about 10 years later he got a project management job and he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what I did in the military." And he's like, I need to bring this to everyone else. Every veteran needs to understand that they have this transferable skill set. This is what they can do in the civilian sector. And so he obviously founded our company, and now we offer project management exam prep, along with other certification prep as well. Garrick, our lead instructor for PMP, he kind of describes his transition as, wobbly and not really understanding, like, what do I do? And then he took a PMP Bootcamp Plus course and he's like, ding, 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 this is what I do. Jeremy, same thing, went to an interview, bombed it. And he's like, I don't know how to translate. Went to a PMP
Mhm.
bootcamp and he's like, boom, now I know. And those stories are just everyone's story. But now
Yeah.
the story actually has changed because Bridget, who is the program manager for SkillBridge for Vets to PM, she's a Vets to PM success story. She knows
Mhm.
now how to translate her skill set, and she's helping others do the same. Jessica, Lindsay, you, myself, right? And the list
Mhm.
goes on. Brian and Fred and all the other people that are on our awesome team. We're proof that the product works because we're translating our skill set, we're validating it, we're showing and telling it, we've connected with companies that want to work with us, and now we're earning a lucrative post-service career, whatever that means to you, right? And not to mention, it's super meaningful to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you said lucrative, whatever that means to you. That's very important. And you were talking about it earlier. When your own individual authenticity, like you're turning down more money in the corporate world to do what you do, and I think that is so awesome. But it also aligns with what the research says. People will take a pay cut for more control, right? For more creative control over what they do. And I feel like that's what you've done, and that's awesome. And when
Yeah,
I
and
got
if
brought on, I
I was
go
just
ahead.
going to say, if I was to be truly authentic, and let people know, I feel like I achieved a lot in the military. I
Yeah.
retired as a E8. That's a big deal in the military. It might not mean anything
Mhm.
to civilians, but in the military community, that's a big deal. I've done lots and lots of things that most HR professionals can't say that they've done, especially when it comes to Iraq and Afghanistan and casualty reports and, all those things that, that my teams or myself were, I mean, mortuary affairs at Whiteman Air Force Base. Like, how many HR professionals can say that they've dressed the remains of an airman to make sure that they're, good to go for their family? Like, not many people can say that. So I feel like I've achieved everything that, that I really wanted to achieve past that. And so
Mhm.
now my focus is a little different. I want to make sure that my achievements in my home, being happily married, having a well adapted teenager in this world, in this social media digital world, like, that's a different sort of achievement for me now. And so, sure, I was making six figures at Continental, succession planning, whatever it is, but none of that really meant anything to me. But now being able to make lunch at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for my husband and my son, and being able to sit down and talk about my son's future because he just went to a recruiter yesterday, and doing all that stuff, that is lucrative. That's lucrative.
Yes. Yes. That is facilitating who you want to be, that
Yeah.
lifestyle that you want. So yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, and I think we have to, as we, wrap up, every military person, military service member, or veteran that's watching, you have to trust yourself. So when you start thinking about your separation and retirement, think about what it is that you want. What is it that you think of?
Yeah.
And so that is what you're doing, is you're truly thinking of the lifestyle that you desire, right? Now, not everyone is in a financial position that where they can, maybe take a pay cut, whatever it may be, but you can still create a life, right? And I like to say, I don't strive for work-life balance anymore. I strive for life-work balance. Work is a pillar of my life, right? That's my authentic self. Because if I were to be 100% honest, I wouldn't mind just waking up and reading all day. So, you know what I mean? I'm just be real authentic there, but
Yep.
but you just have to kind of think of what is it that you want. Take it one year at a time, but trust that you do have a transferable skill set, that you do have the resources, right? You have people that want to help you. You have tons of companies out there, especially Vets to PM. I mean, we're not stopping. I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, but we are just getting started. And then have empathy towards yourself and others as well. So that way, once you start trusting yourself, then you'll be able to trust others as well. So, any last tips, tools, or advice for those that are kind of battling with trusting themselves and trusting others in this crazy military transition time?
So yeah, I would say when it comes to developing trust in yourself, 100% do the research, try and acquire as much knowledge as you can from explicit sources and from people that have that tacit knowledge that have been there. That's
Yeah.
huge. That's going to be the foundation of that. And then, be your authentic self, understand what you really want. Again, we can keep talking about this, but people are like, yeah, no, I want to make 150,000. It's going to be a short-term boost in your mental health. Like you're going to be pretty excited initially, but like I said, that eventually becomes your new baseline. And you need those things that you were talking about. Hey, this is meaningful to me. Being able to
Yeah.
cook a meal for my family, once or twice a day, that's huge because coming from the military, there were there were weeks we would go without having a single meal with our families. So now that means more to you than dollars in the bank account, and that's huge.
Yep.
Granted, we need a certain amount of dollars to continue
Yeah.
maintaining our lifestyle. But
That's a
yeah, be
good
your
point,
authentic.
though. I'm
Yeah.
also going to say, in the same breath that you're asking, for work-life balance and stuff like that, you have to think to yourself too, like, do you actually need to make this amount of money? Are there sacrifices that you can
Mhm.
make in order to have more? Like for me, it's time freedom, being able to work on creative projects, and then also being able to work with people that want to work with me because not everyone at Continental wanted my expertise. You know what I mean? Nothing bad. It's just the way that life is sometimes. So you have to ask yourself
Yeah.
too, like when you think you say, well, I need to make this, do you actually need to make that? Are there sacrifices that you could make for that work-life balance that you desire?
Yeah. And there's the saying there are no solutions, only trade-offs. Like, so what are you trading off in exchange for that additional salary or that extra money? There's probably something that you're sacrificing. And
Oh yeah.
in your case and mine, there are ones that I'm not willing to make. Somebody could offer me a lot more money, but hey, you're going to be spending more time away from your family and more time out of the house and more, six-figure salary, six-figure work. I'm probably going to have to pass on that, just like you have. And then, you know, be empathetic, acknowledge your own feelings as valid. Try to understand why you have them. Try to see how they influence behaviors, and if they're originating negative or unwanted behaviors, then probably we need to go. If they're counterproductive, I guess is a better word.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, uh, be alert for those feelings that kind of generate counterproductive thoughts and behaviors. Um, but yeah, give yourself a break, extend yourself some grace, as you previously said, and work on our own emotional intelligence as best we can because you know nobody's going through this in a vacuum in isolation.
No.
Like this is if you
And if
especially if
you
you have a
are, that's
family.
by choice
Yeah.
for the most
Yes.
part. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always exceptions to the rule, but if you are,
Yeah.
it's usually by choice.
But in all likelihood, if you've got a family, if you've got, they're going through this transition with you, empathy, self empathy, but also expand that outward. I understand why you feel this way. I understand this might upset you. That's all you got to say. And something along those lines. And the payoff is huge. People will eventually trust you more and it'll strengthen relationships. And that's really what we're all
Yeah. And one last thing for everyone that's listening, there is a crazy statistic out there that says, military members I think it's like 60% or more of military members are leaving their first job within the first year. And a lot of people want to go ahead and draw conclusions, and the study does as well, and says it's because we're not competent enough. And after talking to thousands of veterans in the last 5 years, I am pretty confident to say it has nothing to do with competence. It has everything to do with chasing a military transition journey that you didn't want in the first place. You don't have to go out and work a six-figure job to be relevant. Because I will tell you, and I've told Aaron this before, but the amount of time that you spend with your family and your children when they're younger or in the infancy of the relationship is going to amount to the amount of time that they spend with you when they're older or in, the later part of your relationship. And you can't undo that. You can't take that back. So all this time that you missed dinner, you missed this, you missed that, when you were in the military, for the most part, you didn't have a choice, right? You signed the dotted line. That's the commitment. You met those dotted line commitments. That's your sacrifice. That's your service. But when you transition, you do have a choice. Yes, you have to make money. Yes, you have to work. We all need a living, right? We need purpose, whatever it may be. But don't forget that the purpose can be inside your home too.
Oh yeah.
Purpose can be
Yeah.
inside your home as well. And so people are leaving their first job because they're not starting out with being authentic about what they want. And so you have the opportunity. Take it 1 year at a time, connect with Vets to PM. Let us help you do all the logistics, identify your skill set, validate it, show and tell it, connect you with employers. But we also have lots of free resources that can help you identify what do you actually want in your military transition. Thank you, Aaron, for joining us again. As always, you always have something good to say, and we all learn from you. And I'm proud that not only did we serve together, right, relatively speaking, but I'm glad that we get to work together now, and I'm glad that we get to help veterans achieve a meaningful and lucrative career together. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us at the Military Transition Academy podcast. If we sparked your interest and you're ready to learn more, visit vetstopm.com. We'd love to help you prepare for a meaningful and lucrative post-service career. Welcome to the Vets to PM Military Transition Academy podcast, where we feature veterans and professionals who've built successful careers in business and corporate America to help you do the same. In this episode, Misty is joined by Aaron McEvers, a U.S. Army veteran. Before you can trust any organization to guide your military transition, you must first trust yourself. In this episode, we break down the 3 components of trust and show how they directly impact your post-service career. Let's dive in.